Welcome, everybody out there to Divorce Devil episode 62. We have Tracy Malone on the mic from Colorado. Where in Colorado?
Boulder.
Boulder, and I'm in Colorado Springs. So we're kind of homies, but not too close. Tracy is a narcissist abuse support specialist. Her website is phenomenal. I still haven't read everything on there, and I've been on there for 3 weeks. Yeah. No way you created all that website in one fell swoop.
Oh no, it's been years and years.
But it's awesome, and we'll have the contact information for Tracy at the end of the podcast. But let's talk about you, Tracy, a little bit about you and how you became a narcissist expert.
Oh, from a lifetime of training. I did not know what a narcissist was until about 6 years ago. And that's when I learned. And when I learned, it was the explanation of everything in my life. So not only was my boyfriend at the time a narcissist, that's who someone told me to look it up. Then I realized that was my divorce. My divorce was called the worst divorce in our town's history by the judge. And I had no explanation. I'm like, why are they doing this? Why is this happening? Nobody ever said the word. Mm-hmm. Then it explained my mother, my father, my sisters. No wonder I didn't see it. I was normalized to this sort of behavior.
That was like your base.
Exactly. And that's what happens to so many victims is that if they've had some kind of, I would say, parent or some kind of influence in their past, it does become normalized. Ghosting was our family vacation, which is, that was what they'll be back. It's just like, that's who's not talking to who. No, nobody cares. It was just the normal thing. But then it comes into the relationship and it's a different story.
Wow. So what is a narcissist? What is the, there's so many definitions out there. I've read so many definitions. What is your definition of a narcissist?
Well, if we go by the DSM-5, which is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, which all therapists, psychologists, and everybody has to look at, they have these like 5 or 6 points that to me are dumb. A grandiose self-importance, exaggerated achievements, thinks they're special, thinks they need excessive admiration, and needs it, they're entitled. The bottom line is those do not reflect what a true narcissistic person is, because there are different types. For one thing, we can pretty much, most people equate the overt kind of narcissist, which is the grandiose. You can see it. It's almost like they're flamboyantly love themselves and everything's about them. But then the ones that get like off radar are what we call covert. A covert narcissist is someone who, to the world, they think they're the best person in the whole world. You have the best husband. Oh my God, he's so wonderful. Till the door closes and then they start to secretly, silently gaslight you and do all of these abuse tactics, but nobody sees it. So the public persona on the covert is everyone thinks they're the best thing in the world. So even for me, when I look back at my marriage, mine was a covert, and I believed that he was Prince Charming. Like, he told me that so many times. He told people that so many times that I bought the dialogue. I wasn't looking at the things that were not right. I just went, well, that's weird. Oh, that must just be him. Oh, right. That's the way he was raised. Okay. I could justify everything he did because I was used to justifying. But, a true narcissist, when they're in a relationship, and they can be your mother, they can be your brother, they can be your boss, they can be your landlord. They don't have to be in a romantic relationship. But, when you're looking at a relationship, the relationships tend to move very fast. They are, we call it the idealized stage, and they move really fast. Like, you are the best thing. I'm in love with you. You're my soulmate. You're everything, right? And so when you have someone that is moving that fast, they do it so that you don't get to see the real them. They're still with this, what we call the mask. They build this mask based on what you're looking for. And you're like, oh my gosh, they like everything I like. And they even have a one-eyed brown, dog with 3 legs, just like I do. You're like, really? What's the odds of that happening, right? Everything is just so fast and they swoop you off your feet, men and women, right? But
Yeah,
the truth is,
let's make sure that women can be narcissists too.
oh, and
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
worse. They're so much worse, but they manipulate people, and they pull them in often. Again, they're targeting a certain type of person, a codependent, people pleasing, boundaryless, kind, loving, sweet, and beautiful person. They
It's
search
almost
for
like a lock and key.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is. We work together. They wouldn't be attracted to someone who's strong with strong boundaries. So they target people and attack them, and they go to it and they attack them with a victim story. Oh, everyone was so mean to me. My ex was terrible. And you're like, oh, you poor thing. I'll never do that to you. So they hook you. But, then they keep on using tactics that are not appropriate. They are extremely pathological liars. So again, that false narrative, everything is all a big lie. Their love for you is a lie, even if it lasted 45 years.
So what I'm hearing is that two narcissists pretty much can't be together.
That's actually not true. There's situations where they feed off of each other, like they both give each other what we call supply. But they do need someone that's going to do their bidding. That's the thing with a narcissist, is they want a sex slave. They want a mother to mother their children, to make them look good on paper, someone to be eye candy, someone, they've always got a reason for why they've chosen you.
So it's almost like keeping up with the Joneses, trying to have that facade, trying to show people that, hey, I'm a great father, I'm a great mother, things like that.
Absolutely.
So go ahead.
I was going to say, on that note, showing everyone that they're a great father is in public, behind closed doors. They don't go play basketball. They don't help them with homework. They don't even know they go to school. They know nothing about their kids, but I'm the soccer coach. And as soon as everyone's like, oh, your husband's so great, he's a great soccer coach, they get in the car and they're yelling and screaming at their kid for missing the ball and embarrassing them. And then they get to the soccer lunch and they're like, come on in, son. And the kid is just sitting there with his head spinning going, he was just yelling at me.
On? Yep.
Yeah. So
what are some of the signs, some of the covert signs? What's a deep, dark, covert sign of a narcissist? I mean, these guys and gals are premeditated, and
they are
good.
Absolutely. So, the different types of signs of a covert narcissist are going to be on a spectrum. Some do lies, some do not lies. They all always seem to be charming. They always seem to have that. So that's part of the hook. Again, big red flag if they're so kind. They often don't have a lot of friends. They don't have a lot of history with other people except the crazy ones. Everyone in their past is crazy. And so when everybody's crazy, again, they're like, I've been trying so hard, but I keep pulling these crazy ones, right? If everyone in their past is crazy, you will join the crazy ex club very soon. It's just a matter of time, right? They use projection. They use gaslighting tactics. You know what gaslighting is?
Yes. Let's go through that. Yes.
Yeah. So gaslighting is where they try to make the person doubt their own reality. And there's so many ways they can do that. There's a famous 1940s movie, which is called Gaslighting, that the husband in this particular movie literally would move the woman's pearls. And then she'd be like, I know I put them there. Where are they? You're so absent-minded. How could you not be responsible for them? And then she'd feel bad about herself. And then he'd move them again. So it was like this little cat and mouse game, but it's even more than that. When you're talking about gaslighting in divorce, for example, these things start really early. And so thinking about there's no money, you'll get nothing. If you never worked, so if you leave me, you're getting nothing, and I'll take the kids from you too. That's a threat, but there's no air behind it because it's really just gaslighting. It's a lie. But the reality is the victim now goes, well, I didn't work, so I have to stay because I will have nothing and he'll take my kids from me. So the gaslighting is like this poison in their mind that makes them doubt what they see, hear, or believe. And so they just use that. The false allegations are also gaslighting when they're sitting there telling people you're a thief and everybody else believes you. They get everyone to go against you, and they poison all your friends. They even take people's family away. Many of my clients, their own mother and father won't talk to them because the narcissist has literally been eking out. They'll go to a dinner, for example, on a gaslighting dinner, right? And you sit there and you get up from the table, everyone's having a glass of wine. You get up and go to the bathroom and they tell all your friends, I'm so worried about Tracy. She's drinking so much lately. I'm really worried she's becoming an alcoholic. And then you come back to the table and everyone's happy again. They've planted the seed that you are crazy, you are a bad mother, or you're an alcoholic. And your friends are like, oh, I'm so concerned for her. And they just continue to build that for years before the actual breakup. And now they can say, I'm leaving her because she's a bad mom and an alcoholic, when you had the same one glass of wine as everyone else in the room.
So let's talk about divorce and narcissism. We kind of talked about early, where they try to plant the seeds.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the things during and post divorce? That's sometimes when it gets really hairy. I've seen and heard of some crazy stuff.
Crazy. I mean, we start off with the smear campaigns, we call it, where they, again, like I just said, that gaslighting example of telling your friends there's something wrong with you. So, smear campaigns are you're a bad mother. Smear campaigns are you've stolen money. And they magnify it from just a smear campaign to get your mother and your family to not talk to you. My ex-husband turned my little sister against me, and she was willing to testify against me during my divorce trial. Like, you can't make that up, right? So that's one of the big things, because now you're isolated. The reason they do that is because you're now isolated. You have no support system, right? Stonewalling is huge, mostly not handing in documents. You talk about divorce all the time. Discovery is just part of it. You have to have every single page dotted and crossed off with the T's, but they will never give their paperwork in, and they will hide money. They will call social services on you and make false claims and accusations that you're a bad parent. I have one lady that has had social services called on her 20 times and none of it was real. But now there's a doubt, and now there's a police record, and now there's a CPS case against you. They do that without any empathy. When we talked about that first DSM thing, smearing you and lying about you, they have no empathy for what you did. The last narcissist I was with had me arrested because I went to his house to forgive him for sleeping with someone else. They have no empathy for what that consequence would have. It just made no sense. I have support groups here in Colorado. At no point do we have less than 5 people that have been arrested by their narcissists, men and women. No less, sometimes more. Sometimes we have to make a whole little corner for everyone to talk because they've been through it, right? The projection is huge when they're telling you you did something or accusing you of it when they didn't. And when you didn't do it. So projection is like, it bothers the victim because they're telling you you're a terrible parent and you beat our child, you broke our child's arm. All these things are crazy, but everything that they are doing as a projection is actually a confession. Whatever they are accusing you of, I can guarantee it.
They've done it.
Accuse you of hiding money. You're like, I didn't even have the money to hide it. But they will accuse you of that.
So 2 things: healing. How does a narcissist heal? How do you heal from a narcissist?
Yeah, that's the thing. Narcissists don't heal. There is no cure for them. There are some that can go to therapy, and we're talking not go to therapy. We're talking with psychiatrists 3 times a week for 2 or 3 years to kind of break this out of them. It is not an easy thing, and most don't go in the first place unless they're court ordered or something. So
you're a narcissist. Hello.
Exactly. Well, nothing wrong with me. It's all of you people, right? So, give up that hope, give up any idea of going to couples counseling with them, because you got two choices here. You go to couples counseling with them, they're going to say, as my husband did, if the therapist says something bad, like, that's not appropriate for you to do that. Or can you think about what it feels like to your wife to do that, or your husband? The narcissist is going to say, I'm never going back to that therapist. If they are able to charm the therapist, they will use that charm, and all of a sudden the tables are turning. You're the bad one. So it's never good. It never works. Therapy bad, but therapy for you is good, right? You have to be able to get through this divorce. You have to get through the fighting and the war. There's not a single narcissistic divorce that is less than a year. Most of my clients will go through 10 lawyers and go through them because the narcissist is burning it up. I mean, just the amount. I've had at least one client that thought she was poor, but ended up fighting a battle that cost her $1 million. Thankfully, they weren't poor in the end, so that covered it. But she didn't even know. She had lied to her for 28 years of marriage. She thought they were poor. If she spent more than $50 in groceries, back to the store, bring those peas back. And she thought they were poor. And then he starts this divorce battle, and turns out there's millions that she wasn't allowed to spend for 28 years.
Man, I got a story for you. So I think I told the story before. We went to therapy before we were divorced, a couple of years before we divorced. And this woman, I swear, was a man hater. I could do nothing right. And so I know about firing therapists. That was very interesting. So at what point did you feel that you had to go to the masses? What was your point?
Well, after the man had me arrested, I was devastated. I'm like a business owner, a mother. I'm like, what? It was 24 hours, and it was the worst 24 hours of my life. Someone said he's gaslighting you. Go look it up. And I started to look up and just focus and went, oh my God, this is crazy. I can't believe that I'm this old and no one ever told me about this. And so I said, I'm going to make a website and educate people. And I said, I'm going to start a Facebook group and educate people. And then I started support groups here in Colorado. I have 2 that were running once a month for 6 years. And I thought, okay, I'll just set up this little group and we'll see if anyone comes. There's 1,400 people in the groups now, and we would have up to 40 people in a group at a meeting. And I was like, I had no idea it was this big, right? It was all new but I learned as I sat there and I listened to everyone's stories about their landlord or their neighbor, things I hadn't even occurred to me, because there's no book on a narcissistic landlord or neighbor. Right? So you're like, oh, I didn't even know. So as I worked with these people and became friends, all of them from those early days are still my besties. And so you build relationships. So I just started putting it out there. My son told me, Mom, you should make a YouTube video. And I'm like, what? What's that? And he was like in college at the time. And, here's a link, Mom, you got to do this. And I just started picking up the camera. And I said, if my stupid stories can help one person, it would all be worth it. Yep. I never imagined 2 million people. And so it just kept growing and growing. And, the more I learned from the people that I was seeing with those groups, and I was still doing my other job for years, but the more I learned, the more I wanted to learn how to heal. The more I wanted to see, how does someone get better? And then I would take these lessons that I learned to those groups and go, okay, we're going to learn about boundaries tonight, guys. And we would just sit down and learn about that. And okay, now we're going to learn about this. And what about that? And the more I learned those pieces, the more my coaching became born, if you would.
So do you think that when you do your coaching, is there an element where you learn also from the groups? Because when I facilitated, I learned all the time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Especially when I get into the online groups that can run for 12 to 16 weeks. I followed this person as they went through the whole divorce process. And they would come back and go, okay, my lawyer said this, and someone else will be like, mine says this, when all of a sudden there's this joint idea about how lawyers handle different things. So I started writing my book about almost 3 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
I had never, as my father said before he passed away, you're writing a book? You never even wrote a term paper. A narcissistic father. And I was like, thanks for the support, Dad, but I had to learn. And I just kept writing and writing, and I gathered thousands of people. We had this form on my website and in my Facebook group to submit tricks that were pulled on them. And so people would just write it all out, 2 or 3 pages without a period, without a paragraph, and they would submit it. And I'd be like, oh my gosh. So I had to go
stream
through
of consciousness. Yep.
Yeah, stream of consciousness. And it's always, they're just in shock. They're shell shocked at what happens. And so as people submitted these, we started sorting and, well, if this could happen, well, what's the antidote to that? To prevent your electricity being turned off on a snowy night, get the electricity out of their name if they moved out. To prevent them from having access to your email accounts by changing the Wi-Fi password when they leave the house. Because I have had clients with them in their driveway in the middle of the night tap into the Wi-Fi because they had it on their computer before. And then you can go and look at other network computers. Now you're on the computer, you grab their emails, you read what they're planning in the divorce, you're seeing their documentation. They do that. So there's just little things like that a normal divorce wouldn't ever have. Like if you have an alarm on your house, okay, lots of people will be like, okay, they're gone. I'll change it so my wife can't get in, and I'll change the code. And I have an example in the book where the woman changed the code and said, okay, I'm safe. But guess what? She forgot to call the alarm company and to tell them the call-in number and that he's no longer allowed. So he breaks in, the alarm's going off. He picks up the phone because he's on the alarm and says, oh gosh, yeah, this is Mr. So-and-so. I was pushing the buttons, but the dog was jumping and I dropped all my groceries. So I didn't, oh gosh, could you turn it off? Sure, Mr. Jones, there you go. And they turned it off and he was in their house. So how do we avoid that? We remember these little details. And so as I gathered all that from all of the people I coach and my groups, it became a book.
Wow. I've got a definite thought. Are narcissists pretty smart? They got to be smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not dumb. They're not.
I have something in my book that nobody has ever coined. And this is an important part to answer that question. Generally, they are pretty darn smart. They are CEOs, they're CFOs, they're very, very smart.
Yep.
But we have rich and poor narcissists is how I classified it in the book. Because in divorce, it's different, right? Like you can still be an overt, a covert, a malignant, whatever. But are you rich? Because if they're rich, the entitlement, this is my money, you get nothing, right? There's that factor. If they're poor, your money is what they're after. I had a girl who was the breadwinner. She met this man and they were married within 2 months. And when they were married, he's like, oh, I just moved here. I don't have a banking account. Why don't we start up a joint account? Okay, she said. She set up the joint account. And then they're talking about buying a house. So she's put down $40,000 and he put down $5,000. They put both of those
$5 or 5,000?
5,000.
Okay.
But, 40 to 5,000 is what was going in here, but it all went into the joint account. They were married for 2 months after he had her arrested, and she was evicted out of her house. And then he went after half of all the profits in the house because it was a year he was living in the house while she was in some rental. She couldn't even get him out. It's her house too. And she put all the money down, but he was after a full 50% because it was joint money. Her 40 grand was joint money by putting it in that account. That's what a poor narcissist does. They take advantage of people, even on their wedding day. I want all your assets to be turned over to me tomorrow.
So a poor narcissist is pretty smart too.
They can be, but
Yeah.
they can also be dumb. But again, they have a different game. They have a different target, right? A different mark. They're looking for someone with assets, both men and women. Women do this to men 90% of the time. Oh, I see someone that can be my sugar daddy. And they target them. They do it. They charm them. They make them fall in love with them. They take all their money and then they run.
Wow. One of my friends is an ex-deputy sheriff, and he was telling me how he saw, and he would serve, what's that thing where you get served and
Subpoena.
Subpoenas. Oh, well, no, that you can't go next to the person. That thing.
Restraining order.
Restraining order. So he would serve restraining orders, and he saw this trend where a guy would meet a girl in the bar, they would shack up, she would stay the night, and she filed a restraining order, kick him out of his house. While he was gone, she would take everything. Oh yeah, that's got to be narcissistic behavior.
Oh yeah,
and it was a trend. It wasn't one or two. It was a trend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, we're thinking con man, con woman. Like think Ocean's 11. It's very calculated. You turn this corner, I turn this corner. We get this guy at the bar, and then like that's coordinated where someone else is coming over in the morning to clear out the house with them, right? It's a thievery, right?
So is narcissistic behavior genetic? That's a good question.
How does someone get narcissistic? There is mixed information on that, because it's not like there's a gene that they can say genetically, but when you have a narcissistic parent, there's a 50% chance that you will either learn those behaviors or you will learn to be the people pleaser, because if you don't please mommy or daddy, you're going to get in trouble. So you learn those skills. Like that's exactly what happened to me, where I became I'm going to keep the peace, make everybody happy, because if I didn't in my family, then there was help to pay. And so the general rule is that narcissists or people who have narcissistic personality were injured as a child. They had some kind of trauma that kind of hurt them and made them into this way. Looking at my own family, I have two sisters. They're both very narcissistic, like my mother. They learned her behaviors and learned, oh, this is how you get your way. And you don't care about anyone else. You make yourself the most important person. And so again, 50-50 shot. So people who have a narcissistic spouse and kids are petrified that they're going to see this as behaviors and learn it. And very often I have at least 5 clients now that their kids are showing the behaviors of the narcissistic partner. And they're like, what do I do? And so you can sort of teach the children, like, no, this isn't okay. But if it's allowed, because that's what the household does, it just becomes the family dynamic and they become to the dark side.
So what happens if you're in a relationship, you love this person and they're narcissistic, but you want to work it out? What are some of the things? I think I heard you talk about boundaries. Mm-hmm. What are some of the things you can do?
Well, narcissists don't listen to boundaries. And that is how we find out if they are a narcissist
or not.
We need to set those boundaries very early in the relationship as a test. Again, most victims of this type of abuse don't have great boundary skills because they just are so kind and loving, and they are givers, right? Mm-hmm. The victims are givers, the narcissists are takers, right? And so it is that dance together where you're perfectly matched, right? Well, I'll just keep giving you. Oh, you're sad, and I'll keep helping you, right? So setting a boundary with a narcissist doesn't normally work, but that's the test. If you set it up with them early, you'll know they're never going to listen to my boundaries. And so trying to set it later, I have a boundaries course on my website. I'm like, this is not intended for the narcissist. This is intended for you to fix your patterns and learn these things so no one else does this to you again.
So what about my listeners out there that are in a relationship with a narcissist? They're married to him.
They're married to them.
And it works, maybe it works, stay in it. A lot of people stay in it for the kids, which I don't condone. Mm-hmm. What do you say to them, man? That's a rock and a hard place.
it's a rock and a hard place, and it doesn't get better. It honestly gets worse. And we make excuses. We learn to take the crumbs. We learn to be less important. We learn to do more work. And if you can manage that, then you can manage it. But I can guarantee you one day it's going to end, because they cannot maintain that mask for long or forever. And I have one lady that's 48 years with her partner, her husband. And it took that long for him. And he'd been having affairs. They cheat like crazy. He'd been having affairs for years, but then he got better afterwards. He felt bad. He was good. It was all better. And they'd have a year or two that was normalized.
It was like Rocky, bang, bang, bang.
Exactly. Right. So it becomes, what can you tolerate? Because eventually it will change, and they're going to leave you, just like the 45-year-old marriage is one day. I got this 20-year-old secretary. I'll see you later. And you'll be sitting there going, but I did all this work, all these years. I did everything. And then it will end. It doesn't go well. Unless you are just so compliant and have absolutely no needs. They don't listen to your needs. They don't think about you. They are thinking about themselves 24/7.
So there's times where it works. If you can be complacent and if it works, it works.
It works until it doesn't. But, if they are educated that this is what it is, and you've got the kids, then you need to learn communication skills to make it easier. Even if you're not getting a divorce, you need to not trigger them to make your life easier. Because some people, all you got to do is say, welcome home, honey. Boom, they're triggered, and you're sitting there with all kinds of stuff. So how do you ask that person that's going to be triggered in a second to say, Johnny needs new sneakers for school, and they're going to say, I don't care, no way, right? They're not going to be that generous kind of person. Again, rich and poor, different. Yep. The rich ones, sure, buy the kid a Ferrari, I don't care. The poor ones are going to be like, you're not getting
my money. Yeah, that's my money. Yeah.
Exactly. You got it. Yeah.
So I was on the website quite a bit. What is a flying monkey?
Oh,
that's my favorite. The flying monkey.
Monkeys? Well, I am going to show you a flying monkey.
Oh, you have a flying monkey. All right.
I actually do. He has a cape, and I can wing him. And if I wing his arms, I can throw him, and he screams. Okay. That's my one for clients, but that's not the real reason. So a flying monkey is someone that the narcissist recruits to get to you, to either get information or tell you things, in the name of the narcissist. It was named after the witch and the monkeys in the Wizard of Oz, right? They did her bidding. So basically a flying monkey it can be your sister. Like in the example I used before, where my sister was turned against me and was going to testify. She was a flying monkey because my husband could get to her and go, oh my God, I'm so worried about her, with concern. And then then as he swarmed and charmed her, he could then come in and go, oh yeah, she's doing this to me. And gosh, she's trying to do all this stuff. Won't you help me? Either she brings a message back to me that says, oh, your husband is so worried about you. He loves you so much, which is a lie. It's just to try to get the hooking. And then the sister in this example has will you find out? Is she really going to call the lawyers? And then they sit there. Or the flying monkey can be something used for, your kids. You can have someone on the soccer team, and again, sort of like, oh, but he's so worried about you. They just pull people in to bring their messages or find out intel on you. So, what are they planning or what's going on and that sort of thing.
So it's almost like after divorce, they say don't use the kids as weapons, but a lot of people, I find out, use the kids as flying monkeys. What's your dad up to? What's your mom up to? Yeah. Who's she dating? Who's she seeing? Right. It's sad.
That's like the minor part of the kids being used. Yep. It's really sad when they promise the kids, I'll be there on Friday. Can't wait to come, kids. And then they just don't show up. That they really use the kids and hurt them so badly. Yep. And, it's a scary kind of thing, but that's part of it.
One of my favorite kid stories happened to a friend. He had his kids. They did the week on, week off parenting, and he had his kids one week, and his two boys were leaving, and his daughter was driving, and they had a big old bag headed to the car. So the dad stopped him and said, "Hey, what's in the bag?" Nothing. So he opened the bag, and there's like 15 rolls of toilet paper. So dad says, "Hey, what's the deal?" "Oh, mom says you don't need them. We're to take them to mom's house." So I had to set those so the guy had to set those boundaries and say, "Hey, this is the deal, guys. Mommy's house is mommy's house. Daddy's house is daddy's house." That's like the ultimate. Like,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah. I mean, I've had where the I'm not gonna say male or female, but the one partner came back into the house to like get their stuff, and they took the thermostats off the wall.
What time of year was it?
Winter. But again, well, I could use those Nest thermometers at my house.
yeah.
Sure, I'll just clip those wires. Oh gosh, the kids don't have any heat for the weekend.
Man,
They can go to grandma's. They'll be okay.
So my final question, which is a big one: how do you decompress from everything that you hear? You hear so much craziness.
I hear so much craziness.
What do you do? What's your outlet?
I actually had an energy clearing yesterday for an hour and a half.
Where you go?
Because my homeopathic doctor that I go to on a monthly basis to just keep my body in shape, she can tell if I'm holding emotions. And she has this list. This little computer comes up and it goes, "Oh, you're holding all this stuff, Tracy." And I'm like, okay, but that's not mine. I don't have depression. I don't have like anger. I'm not with these things. And she's like, "But you take it in."
Yep.
And so the energy clearer just comes and like whoosh, gets all that stuff out of me. And then I go back to the homeopathic. She goes, "Yep, it's all gone." Like it shows on the computer screen.
It's kind of like a magic eraser.
It is like a magic eraser for the stuff I hold, and I don't know. I know I'm different than a lot of therapists for sure. I just put something, my client's father's being put in a home on Friday. I will text her. I have sent cookies to people who have cancer. I care about my clients, and I just love them because I watch how they have grown from the deer in the headlights, fear, anxiety, and just so much hurt to the point where they get to the other side and they're finding themselves and they're empowering themselves. To me, that is like the best thing in the world for me, to watch someone and the light bulb go off, or someone who's been in therapy for 10 years and in 3 sessions, they have all the answers about their childhood and they are on a path to let these things go so that they aren't ruining their life. So
it's almost like a family.
Yeah. I love my, and again, the support groups, there's just always girls going out and we're always doing things. I used to do
happy hour.
We'd go to concerts. I can't tell you how many times I've been to Red Rocks with all my support group girls. And
that's cool.
It's
guys. Come on, you got some guys there.
The guys have never come to the concerts, but we do have.
Come on, guys.
I know. The girls just like have the gaggle. We form the gaggle and then we climb a mountain together. It's a good girl thing. But yeah.
So years ago, when I facilitated at the divorce recovery workshop here in town, I could identify with you and seeing that change from week 1 to week 7. Like it was phenomenal. The pain they felt that first week, mm-hmm. and then the smile on their face by week 7 was just phenomenal. Mm-hmm. But the thing I struggled with was I enjoyed it. And I kind of said, I'm kind of enjoying their pain, but no, I'm enjoying their struggle and their coming of age. So I had that with me, had to struggle with that. But yeah, it's hard to explain to people when you help people and they come out of something.
Yeah. So now, was your divorce group Rebuilders?
No, it was a small church here. Okay. And they've had a divorce recovery group since 1965. It's the oldest one in Colorado Springs. Wow. And it just disbanded because the guy that ran it got divorced. Kind of ironic. Yeah. But they've been since 1965. They were the pioneers in Colorado Springs.
That's
victim.
awesome.
Yeah.
I went to a rebuilders when I went
Yeah.
through my divorce. No one again said the word narcissist, but that was 12 weeks. And again, this is 10 years ago, and I would say at least 10 of the 40 people are still in my life. So
Wow.
it's such you build a bond with people as you grow and heal.
Yes.
It's so powerful.
Well, Tracy, thank you. That was that was interesting. Flying monkeys, baby. Oh, yes. Divorcing your narcissist. We're going to have the link at the bottom of the page. You can't make this shit up.
Shit up.
S-H-I-T.
It does say that because
yeah.
everybody says that to me whenever they get on my screen. They're like, you're not going to believe what happened today. You can't make this shit up. When 3 people, including a man from the Colorado Springs, said it to me in the same day, I went, that's the name of a book. Thank you.
There you go.
It was like, it identifies exactly with the emotions that the people have to go through.
Well, we want to thank you for being on the show, and thank you for helping people. And we're definitely going to keep in touch. For sure. That was interesting. But thanks for listening to Divorce Devils episode 62. Take care. Bye-bye.